so much for joining us. I would and may introduce elected officials, but right now there aren't any with us that I know about. Correct me if I'm wrong. And I also want to welcome Kathy Ward, who is representing the city of Dana Point as our city clerk, and Jackie Littler is along with her. And our other special guests are going to be introduced as they are part of the program. So, we have a few announcements. They're going to be brief, but I wanted to tell you about some upcoming events. On Wednesday, June 21st, we have our annual Scholarship Fiesta Dinner fundraiser at Doheny State Beach. Jack Saunderson is catering to help us raise funds for his mother's scholarship, Aunt Lucy, and we also are raising funds for the Doris Walker Scholarship. Where is Kat Wallace? Kat's here, Kat Stan, she's our treasurer. If you want to make reservations tonight, she would love to take your money. And I think she also has, do you have a white square with you too if you want to charge it so you can see her? Thank you. And then I also want to mention that we've been invited by the counties, Orange County Historical Commission and OC Parks. And the Orange County Historical Commission has a representative here, that's Carlos Olvera. And they have an event coming up on Saturday, June 10th, Uncovering Hidden Histories in Orange County. It's open to the public. The Dana Point Historical Society is going to have a booth. We would love to have your volunteer help, maybe for an hour or so. And everything there, all the tours are open to the public and they are free. So we'll be there and we hope you're going to join us during that day. And if you're willing to help in our booth for about an hour, let me know or one of our members of the board of directors. And that's going to take place at Irvine Ranch Historic Park. So that is Saturday, June 10th. And then we would very much like you to mark your calendar for the celebration we have planned for our 30th anniversary, which will be a cocktail cruise on the harbor in one of the boats, the Dana Pride, that is owned by Don Hansen and his daughter, Donna. So that's our plan, and we would love to have you gather for that. We're going to have reservations in advance. It's our only fundraiser this fall, and it's going to be 5 p.m. We'll depart at 5:30, and there will be an appetizer buffet along with a free beverage of your choice, and then after that, there is a bar available for more and varied drinks. So tickets will be available starting in August, and we'll be announcing them in the September newsdroger. I hope that you get this either in the mail or online, and you can also go to our website for this information. It's now my pleasure to announce our founders that are here to stand, who have been previously honored, and they are Elizabeth and Bill Bamattre. Elizabeth is here. Ellen Pierce. Susan Hinman. Lynn Muir. B. Reed. John Hansen. Harold Kaufman. Judy Henderson. 2016 Founders Day honorees are Marlene and Bruce Beal. And we are doing something special. We did this 2 years ago. We chose a patriarch of Dana Point. And Mel has left us, but Helen is very much with us this evening. And this is her 70th year coming to Dana Point. So, Kathy Ward has greetings from the city of Dana Point. And she's going to come up here and read the city's proclamation declaring Helen the matriarch of Dana Point.
Thank you very much. I just want to say this is a really great honor for me, and I happen to know her son very well since we used to work together back in 2000. So it's great. I didn't really know this evening. This was kind of a surprise for me, but I'm very, very honored, and I'd love to be able to read this proclamation to you, Helen, on behalf of the City Council and the Mayor. Whereas Helen Pierce, along with her husband Mel, have been first-person witnesses to Dana Point's history since 1930, when Mel came as a 6-year-old, and Helen in 1950, when they were married. Whereas Mel's father was a salesman for Sidney H. Woodruff and built a now historic home on Chula Vista, Mel was a volunteer fireman in Doheny Village for 25 years that he helped to establish in 1958. And whereas Helen worked here in Dana Point in the summer while a young teacher in Alhambra, and whereas, among other things, the Pierces had a long-time laundromat business here in Dana Point, and in the San Clemente area, built a home and raised their family here. And whereas Helen taught kindergarten at Sierra School and was on the staff that opened R.H. Dana Elementary School 61 years ago. Helen was one of the featured speakers at the school's 50th anniversary last year. And whereas Helen continues to be active in the South Shores Church and the Dana Point Historical Society in her 90s, and whereas she rode on the Dana Point Historical Society's historic fire engine Festival of Wales Parade entry in 2016 and was in the parade crowd waving and cheering this year. And now therefore be it resolved that on behalf of Deborah Lewis, the mayor, and on behalf of the rest of the City Council and citizen of Dana Point, recognize Helen Pierce as being honored as the Dana Point Historical Society matriarch of Dana Point and acknowledges her many contributions to our community.
That's sweet.
We didn't know we were going to be so fortunate as to have the city proclaim Helen the matriarch of Dana Point. So we were delighted to have that happen. Great. Thank you so much. The Dana Point Historical Society also wrote a proclamation, and I won't read all of it because some of it is repetitive, but I will read the things that are a little different, or at least I'll try to. So, whereas the Dana Point Historical Society established a Founders Day Award to recognize individuals who have made significant contributions to the history of Dana Point, including Helen and Mel Pierce, the 2007 Founders Day honorees. And whereas in June 1947, Helen Blankenbaker and Mary Nicholson, two young teachers looking for summer work, were referred to the new Dana Point Hotel on Del Prado, where both were hired as waitresses in the Galleon restaurant. And whereas it was suggested, they contacted Mrs. Pierce on Chula Vista, who rented them a room for the summer, and later invited them to drive with her to San Francisco before it was time to return to their teaching positions. And whereas Mel Pierce was introduced to Helen when he came home from his work at the San Bernardino Air Depot to drive his mother and her guests to San Francisco, thereafter visiting Helen on weekends at her parents' home in Alhambra. And whereas Helen and Mel were actually married in the Pasadena Wedding Chapel in 1948, toured the United States on their honeymoon in Mel's 1933 Dodge, and returned to Dana Point to their first apartment, Mel worked in the family pottering business, then started the laundry business while they began their family of 4 children. And whereas Helen returned to teaching in 1953 in Laguna Beach, moved to the Sarah Elementary Kindergarten in 1954, joined the staff of Dana Elementary School in 1966, teaching there until she retired, and as Kathy mentioned, returned some 3 decades later to the school's 50th anniversary. Whereas Helen is the grandmother of 15 grandchildren, great-grandmother of 20 great-grandchildren, continues to reside in the home built by Mel and the volunteer firemen of Doheny Station 29 on a lot they purchased from Woodruff-era realtor Jack McCart, who's pictured over there on one of the boards that were done by Carlos Olvera. All these things came together tonight. On a lot they purchased from Jack McCart, is a faithful member of her church and has contributed to Dana Point Historical Society programs. Now therefore, be it resolved again that Helen Pierce be named matriarch of Dana Point in recognition of her devotion to family, to teaching, and for her loyal participation in our community these 70 years. So Helen, you're going to have back-to-back proclamations. Whoops, sorry, walking away here. Okay, so we have another little bit for you on top of that one. Thank you for being here with us tonight. Okay? Oh, yes, please.
I really
Can I
don't.
take this for you?
I really don't feel that I'm worthy of this, but because of Mel, I'm accepting it. And I do thank God for letting me live in this absolutely beautiful, peaceful place and being part of the Historical Society. Thank you.
And I think you've probably deduced that our Founders Day program is to recognize individuals who have made significant contributions to the history of Dana Point or to the Dana Point Historical Society. And to that end, we're honoring Georgelean and Carlos Olvera this evening, and Bruce and Elizabeth are in charge of the program. So Bruce, would you like to come up and seat our honored guests and take charge of the program?
Good evening. Can you hear me? May I have, or we have, Georgelean and Carlos Olvera come to the stage. Well, I'm talking to those who don't know exactly what the Founders Day program is. Marlene, will you come up also?
Somebody help Carlos up.
The Founders Day program was established by the Dana Point Historical Society in 2002. The goal of Founders Day is to recognize individuals who have made significant contributions to the history of Dana Point and to the Dana Point Historical Society. Founders have one or more of the following qualifications as only longtime resident of Dana Point, contributor to Dana Point history, strong financial supporter of the society, longtime member of the Historical Society, and a former member of the Board of Directors. Our honorees this year qualify under all 5 of those qualifications. Unbelievable. Okay, we're going to start with a short interview between Marlene and Georgelean, followed by Carlos, all seated on the stage with leaders.
Hi. I want to make sure to practice a little bit. Are you able to hear me? No?
Just put it close to you.
Just talk about it.
Need the microphone.
Oh, right. First of all, I want to thank Georgelean for your long-term services to Dana Point Historical Society. I would do the same for Carlos, but it's not his turn. I have 3 questions I'm going to ask Georgelean. One is, which historical site would you say is your favorite in Dana Point?
Tough one.
Oh, sorry.
I guess I would say the arches up there at Admiralty and the walk along the bluff, and also the Hydroger, as I well remember how much work these 2 went through, Elizabeth and Judy. Hydroger in. And I remember the crane bringing it up and over the Admiralty and putting it in place. And we were here for the ribbon cutting. It was so much fun. So we have a lot of pride taking visitors up there to see how the Hydroger walk around that area.
Yep.
Yep.
Let's see. After being a member for numerous years, which historical society events or event would you say was or were the best?
I like home tour because it involves so many docents, and that's a big effort to get that many people who are so willing to give their time. And I so appreciate Barbara that has to take all that time locating the homes, and that's a big feat in itself. But the docents to have double shifts each day is quite a feat. And the second one, of course, I like our reading, because we had such a small group. When Elizabeth introduced it to us, the reading of 2 years before the Mass, our little group started, and we were very proud of it.
Oh, I see I wrote to membership. Many of you likely know that Georgelean has a wonderful sense of humor.
Really? Carlos and I, she has to.
Georgelean, would you say that you inherited your sense of humor from a family member, or that you may have gained it over your years of chamber work and other challenging tasks?
Oh dear. Sorry, Mother. I think it was my mother, because I can remember as a kid, I would just pray that she wouldn't say anything to embarrass me. And sure enough, she would. And my dad was so quiet, he would just put up with it. Mothers do. I think I'll give you an example. My mother first. My mother was the president of Lady Wool Growers in our area, and we went to this convention, and it was a black tie event, and the ladies were all dressed up to the hilt.
and they all had beautiful, big, massive corsages. And Mother was so proud of hers and looked around. One lady didn't have one. And she was so disappointed with her husband for not ordering her a corsage. So my mother took hers off and borrowed somebody's table knife and cut it in half and gave it to her. So I remember rolling my eyes at that too, but I know my kids roll their eyes at me now.
Use this one now. Try it out. And here, last but not least, would you please share about how Bert Cecil came to join your family? And in Bert's story, you would share with us.
Carlos and I were on a trip to Utah, and I read in the paper that there was a Coton breeder. And I said, let's just go look. You know, it doesn't mean anything, you know, we will just look. It means nothing. So we drove to Morgan, Utah, which is a little country town, and he wasn't going to get out of the car. But we looked on this beautiful grassy area, and it was behind a white picket fence. And there was this beautiful little girl with long ringlets, and she was sitting with 3 puppies in her lap. And pretty soon I noticed Carlos got out of the car, and he joined us. And I thought, you know, I better bow out of this nicely, because he said, you know, no puppies, no nothing, don't do anything. And so I explained to the lady, you know, these dogs are really out of our budget. And I thought I could back out, and she'd say, well, that's nice, you just look. And Carlos said,
How much?
and he said, go ahead and pick one. So I was so quick at picking one. And he said, I think you got the shy one. He has no personality. Well, we no sooner got out of the driveway, and he was standing up on the seat, letting us know. So we had to have a name. And we had this friend in the church. We're relatives. And Bert had this big head of white hair. And he was cranky and opinionated and just a character. So Bert passed away, and I asked his wife, the widow, if she would mind if we named this little white precious thing in his honor. And she says, you're really going to be sorry. And she says, you know, his name is Bert Cecil. I said, I love it. So that's how we got Bert Cecil.
Thank you, Georgelean.
A quick little story that's pretty bad. We have a contractor working in our house, and I talk to Bert all the time because he doesn't talk to me.
Another joke.
I was busy getting ready to the grocery store, and I said, sweetheart, I'm going to run to the grocery store, but I'll be right back. And the contractor said, okay. And the next day, he wore a clean t-shirt.
And now I'll pass the microphone off to another person.
Okay, Carlos. Now we get to hear from you. Your name is nearly synonymous with the history of Dana Point as well as Orange County. In fact, the Orange County Register has said about you, if it has anything to do with history, Carlos Olvera is interested. How did you proceed from being a nuclear propulsion and SEAL teams target preparations person to a well-known historian? In other words, where did you get your passion for all things historical?
Well, I guess it started about 1970. I was going to college and I took a class in genealogy. It was an easy class, so I knew it wasn't going to interfere with my engineering classes. And they asked a lot of questions. And so I had to start to ask my mother questions, and she was asking her father at the time. And he said if I knew I was going to have a grandson asking so many questions, I would have paid more attention. And it just kind of bloomed from there, doing family genealogy and then writing the family history book. And for a period, I had my own consulting business, which I did family histories for other people. So history was, you can't do genealogy without studying history specifically. I mean, yeah, but what battle did your ancestors fight in the Civil War? So that was one of the big questions. For me, it was Shiloh.
We have heard the term Mr. Georgelean, quote unquote, used about you. Even I heard you say that. Tell us when that is.
We were only going to stay here for a few months. I was on temporary assignment with Westinghouse at San Onofre. And when it came time to move, I told Georgelean where we were going, and she asked me if I could commute. Dad told me she wanted to stay here. And soon after that, she got very involved. One of the things that she was following around with Harold Kaufman and the Dana Point Civic Association in our cityhood campaign. And she was working at the Chamber of Commerce at the time. And the Chamber of Commerce was the only action in Dana Point. If you want to know who was doing what, where, and when, you go to the Chamber and ask Georgelean. And so at all the mixers and stuff, I was there, moving tables, putting the chairs up, doing whatever I was supposed to do. And people would just say, "Who's that?" And other chamber members would say, "That's Mr. Georgelean," because they all knew her. So for the first couple of years that she was at the chamber, I was just Mr. Georgelean.
Okay,
Still am.
Yeah.
we all remember Doris Walker. You have said that she was your history mentor. Will you explain your developing relationship with Doris?
Doris taught me one very important thing about history. And in Dana Point, we see it quite a bit. There are a lot of people who do not like change. And when I was interviewing her once, she made the statement, if things didn't change, what would I write about? And I thought that was very profound. We keep track of the history by writing it and talking about it. So I just needed to know more, so she had already had her book out. Georgelean met her first, bought her book, and we didn't buy a house when we had that book, did you? You had her endorse, sign the book, and from there, she was the one, when I got involved with the Historical Society about 88, about 88, she was very inspirational to me.
Good. Well, thank you for your wonderful answers to our questions. We're going to move on to...
I'm not done.
Oh, you're not.
As Georgelean was being asked questions, I thought, oh, got to come up with an answer for that one. And the question that she was asked was, what's your favorite historical site? Well, I have a totally different one, and the only reason I came to my mind was because we're recognizing Mrs. Pierce and all her endeavors along with Mel. Well, you know, for 4 years I wrote a It's History article in the Dana Point Times, and I just started reading newspapers and putting them together, and I got onto what is now the Chase Bank in Monarch Beach Plaza. I forget the name of the original bank when it was first built, but it has the title of the largest bank robbery in the United States. And as I started researching it, I started finding out more and more information. I needed somebody who might have been around at that time. 1971, March of 1971. So I called Helen up. And I said, Helen, do you remember the bank robbery at Monarch Beach Plaza? She says, oh yes. And so she proceeded to tell me, and I read it in the research I did too. These guys came from Ohio, and they camped out in a condo off Laguna Niguel Golf Course, and would walk from there to the plaza. And over a 3-day weekend, they broke in through the roof and took everything in the safety deposit boxes. Well, I already knew at this time that in order for them to accomplish that, they had stolen a large extension ladder from South Shores Church. And my research just said, and they took a ladder from the church nearby. So I'm talking to Helen, and she says, well, do you know about the ladder? I said, yes, I know all about the ladder. What's so special about it? Well, on the side of the ladder was written Mel Pierce. And soon there was a knock on her door. Does Mel Pierce live here? And so that's how they got involved in national headlines, but most of their news. But since Helen is here and her son Dave, that's what I remember. That's my favorite. You're done now.
I'd like to ask more questions of you, but unfortunately we cannot do that. At this time, I would like Elizabeth Bamattre to come to the stage and replace Marlene in her chair. And we're going to tell you a little more about and we will tell you, by the way, she's one of the founders of the Founders Day. Yeah, one of the founders of Founders Day.
I just have to be around for a really long time. I have a lot to live up to, for sure. I am going to give you a little background on Georgelean, and most of you here have a connection to Georgelean in one way, shape or form, and I'm going to tell you a little about how much she has done in our community and why she is such a fitting Founders Day honoree. Georgelean arrived in Dana Point in 1983, and it didn't take her long, in spite of her innate shyness, to become acclimated to the Dana Point area. Working at Mission San Juan Capistrano led to an association with Nancy Haywood Griffin, who was eventually offered the job as director of Dana Point Chamber of Commerce. Would Georgelean join her there? Georgelean protested. She didn't know anyone. No problem, said Nancy, talking on the phone to all these folks. You're going to know people really fast. And she did. Georgelean became so much more than a voice on the phone. Her genuinely kind and generous personality made her a favourite for Dana Pointers, including myself, who would drop by the chamber office for an easy conversation with this lovely lady, and no matter how busy she was, she always had time for you. Georgelean worked in media and marketing with the Festival of Arts, the Pageant of the Masters in Laguna Beach, to our neighbours to the north, bringing her signature style and grace there also. As a volunteer, she worked in support of the Dana Point Symphony with the treble clefs, and for the Sand Dollars in support of the Ocean Institute. This commitment to art, culture, and history in Dana Point all came together in Georgelean's continuing support of the Dana Point Historical Society for the years that Carlos was president, for more years than any other president of the society, and up to the present day. She co-chaired with Carlos the 20th anniversary celebration of the city of Dana Point, and we had a wonderful celebration that involved, hundreds of people down at the Pilgrim in the harbour. She has also been a supporter and volunteer for years at our fundraising, scholarships and picnics, and the home tour. And I'll get to that a little bit. And this is Georgelean asked one thing of me when I was going to do this. She said, please make it brief. I promise you this won't be much longer. Georgelean will always have my undying gratitude for her management and her skill and her expertise and her genuine kindness to everybody involved in the 2 years before the mass reading, which has been mentioned. But she truly took on the logistics of this new program, which involved more than 100 readers and volunteers, and Georgelean just met everybody with this amazing grace. And told them where they were supposed to be, and told them how they were supposed to do their job, and then she, just made them feel welcome. And it was huge, because we would not have managed without her, it's very clear, and for 5 years she did that. So here are some quotations to finish my part of it, and I asked several people who are in this room tonight. Patty Short, I think, wasn't able to stay, but Judy is here, Judy Henderson, my good friend, and Heidi Hyde. And I asked them to give me some quotes about Georgelean, and there's a sort of a theme amongst them. And for those of you, and I didn't know this, I have to confess to my good friend Julie, how many of you in this room know Loretta Young, a TV show? Yeah, see, there's some people. And apparently, Judy's quote about Georgelean was, Georgelean reminds me of Loretta Young. All elegance and grace. She is a girlfriend's girlfriend. You feel a strong bond with her. Georgelean, and this came from Heidi, Georgelean was always a fun and gracious addition to any gathering. The home tour she was talking about now in relationship to the experience they had organising all of the docents. A daunting task made easier with her experience. She knows absolutely everyone and has the ability to assign people to tasks of their strengths. She founded a small group, and this might not be known to more than about 4 people in this room, but there's a small group that Georgelean began called the Dana Pointer Sisters. Pointer Sisters? And she just got this birthday group together, and Judy Henderson and Heidi Hyde and Georgelean and myself meet together for our birthdays, and sometimes when we don't even have a celebration. And Georgelean started that because she just is the kindest person that we all know. And in a world where we know none of us are perfect, Georgelean, in fact, is a perfect friend. And I wanted to finish with a quote from Patty Short. Patty has been with the Chamber for longer than anybody I think I know. And Georgelean, she said, brought to the Dana Point Chamber her enigmatic smile, her friendly, engaging conversation, and a willingness to perform any task, no matter how menial. She was always ready to pitch in and serve in spite of the fact that she was an official Dana Point princess.
Okay, Carlos. Carlos also has so many qualifications that I couldn't possibly get into them during my time that I have. So I'm going to delve a little more deeply into a couple of areas. We heard about the Mr. Georgelean, but now we're going to hear about the Mr. History. Carlos has become the go-to historical author for South Orange County, following Doris Walker's untimely death, including many articles published in the Dana Point Times, as he says, named Its History. But Carlos is not only a historian, he is the maker of history. He is credited with initiating the historical element of the city's general plan to include historic preservation. This historic element became a city ordinance in the year 2000 and currently lists 29 homes, including the Dollhouse and the Doheny House, and a schooner, even a schooner in the harbor. Is that your name? Curly. Speaking of the Doheny House, the current owners, the Clarks, may have never had the opportunity to purchase this historic home if not for the efforts of Dana Point Mayor and historian Carlos Olvera, who fought for the protection of this historic structure, the Doheny House, by invoking CEQA, which is the equivalent of EPA at the federal level. I'll let you speak in just a second. Which required a historical review of the property, so he leveraged a requirement of CEQA, environmental protection, into a historical review, research of the Doheny House.
You said that Mr. Clark, when he purchased the Dollhouse, purchased the Doheny House, he was a late investor in the project. He was the only investor that secured his investment with dirt. That means the deed. And so when that project got stopped and the company went bankrupt, he ended up with the house. And so now he turns to the Historical Society and says, look at it. You gave me this house, what do I do with it? And he ended up moving into it and restored it.
In fact, with the need for finding craftsmen with the skills necessary for the job and adhering to our city's strict restoration codes, Carlos again lent a hand to the Clarks, also coaching them on how to qualify for financial assistance through the California Historic Mills Act. So you come with the whole package. He has served as an Orange County Historical Commissioner since 2011, also filling Doris Walker's position, and served as a board member of the Dana Point, San Juan Capistrano, and Orange County Historical Societies. Have I overlooked any historical societies? There you go. Okay, good. He has been a member of the Dana Point Historical Society since 1988, about 30 years, according to my math, and served 9 years as its president. He also served on the City Planning Commission from 1989 to 1995. So he's indeed been making history. As a historian, he thoroughly procured, organized, and presented the many original documents you see down here. And there's many, many, many easels. These are just a couple of them. Describing Sidney Woodbridge's initial development of Dana Point back in the 1930s. He even constructed all of the easels and all of these exhibits. It's the whole package. As he has said, perhaps his affinity for history is an outgrowth of his interest in genealogy, which is the history of human kin, right? Carlos' work in genealogy and historical research is thorough and interesting. He did an elaborate genealogy for Richard Henry Dana Jr. and has explained to Dana relatives how they are related. You can see that exhibit right there. Vastly expanded the knowledge, genealogical knowledge of the Dana family. In fact, let's see.
There she is. She's a Dana. So they're branch of the trees on that chart.
The Dana Point Times quotes Carlos, "I discovered that my wife Georgelean's family tree and my family tree are connected together, thankfully, by a third tree through 2 marriages." He continued, "But most important to me as a historian I found that the sons of my late Dana Point history mentor, Doris Walker, are my fourth cousins once removed. Right, they were related.
Brad and Blair Walker are my fourth cousins.
We go back to my fourth great-grandfather, Bashara Ho, born in 1774 in Sussex County, New Jersey. So he really, Carlos gets deep into the history here. Okay, with that background, we're going to leave the stage now, and we're going to turn to the many declarations and certifications for the Olveras. Photos are allowed at this point. We're going to start with the Dana Point Historical Society.
Let me just add one quick note. That sounds like an awful lot of work, but it really, none of it would have gotten done if it hadn't been for all of you that are sitting out there now and before for the last 29 years. Everybody has helped me to do things. And Karen Snell is one of them. After we acquired the Woodruff collection, the idea was, how do we display it? And someone says, do you know Karen? I said, no. She said, well, she's into art. And she's been chairman of the art committee of the art commission at the airport. And so she taught me how to build those display boards, how to do that. And Georgelean did the one that's all in black. Yes, and you helped me every step of the way. Every step. Thank you, Karen. And then also,
I'm going to read the proclamation for Carlos and Georgelean Olvera as a 2017 Founders Day honorees. Whereas the Dana Point Historical Society established Founders Day to recognize individuals who have made significant contributions to the history of Dana Point. And whereas in 1983, Carlos and Georgelean Olvera settled in Dana Point after raising 6 children, now with 18 grandchildren, and after Carlos's illustrious 22 career in the United States Navy, followed by 28 years as a professional mechanical engineer. And whereas Georgelean and Carlos began many years of service in the community by joining the Dana Point Chamber of Commerce and the Historical Society, assisting the cityhood effort and both extensively supporting the society to the present. And whereas Georgelean volunteered at the Mission and the Laguna Beach Arts Festival of Arts and Pageant Masters, became Dana Point Chamber of Commerce Executive Director, supported the Capistrano Valley Symphony and the Ocean Institute. And whereas Carlos participated in the city's founding, served 5 years on the first Planning Commission, assisted in adoption of the first general plan and served 1 term on the city council, and as mayor founded the Lantern District, organised the Festival of Wales Parade, co-chaired the 20-year celebration of the city's founding, and was named 2007 Dana Point Citizen of the Year and 2006 Festival of Wales Parade Grand Marshal. And whereas Georgelean and Carlos continues to support the Historical Society, Georgelean with her trademark encouragement, expert people skills and participation during the annual home tours, scholarship picnics and reading 2 years before the mast, and through her co-chairmanship of the banner work to save the Doheny House, acquisition and archiving of the Woodruff papers. I think I missed a line there, I'm so sorry. You'll read this again when you get home. Creation of the Richard Henry Dana Jr. genealogy exhibits, research of Dana Point history and service to the Society's president for 9 years. And whereas Carlos served Orange County as its grand jury foreman and continues to serve on its historical commission, and has served as a League of Cities delegate, League of California Cities delegate, as a board member of the Ocean Institute and the County Vector Control, and city's representative of the South Coast Water District. Be it now therefore resolved by the Dana Point Historical Society that Georgelean and Carlos Olvera be presented the 2017 Founders Day Award for their contributions these many years, dated 24th of May 2017.
Georgelean.
Sorry for the bosses.
I think Bruce was supposed to come on in. Right there. 1, 2, 3.
After all the declarations, we'll let him speak.
Yes.
Okay. For the city, our city clerk, Kathy Ward, will give the award.
Kathy's gonna start.
Okay, so, I have known,
Microphone.
oh, sorry. I have known Georgelean and Carlos for 28 years. And I've got a question for you, Carlos. Do you know what November 2nd, 1989 was? Do you remember what day that was?
That's the results of the election that we were, 89.
89. Of course, I
It wasn't 89.
Appointment to the planning commission.
No.
6 months before.
That was the city's open house, the very first day. And you know why I remember that day? It was my first day at the city. In Georgelean.
Yeah.
And of course, we've known each other ever since. And we're on the first planning commission and so on. So it's been my honor to know both of you for all of that time.
The city was in a trailer.
Yes. But I got lucky. I started right at City Hall. And so, about, gosh, I think it just opened like 2 weeks before I started. Something like that. So, yeah, what great fun to have a first day as the city's, open house. Here's Bill. I see Bill and Bamattre over here too. Anyway, I would like to read this certificate of recognition to you. Georgelean and Carlos. Dana Point Historical Society 2017 Founders Day of Honorees, presented by the City Council of the City of Dana Point in recognition of you being named Dana Point Historical Society 2007 Founders Day of Honorees. Dated this 24th day of May 2017 by Mayor Deborah Lewis and the entire City Council. Congratulations.
Okay. For the county, we have Sergio Prince, representing that day, county supervisor.
Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah.
All right. So there's nothing I can say about Carlos and Georgelean that you don't already know. And so I'm not going to bother reading all the whereases and the now therefore, but I will read 2 of them and the now therefore. So without further ado, whereas, now therefore. But all kidding aside, Carlos was an invaluable member of our Dana Point Harbor time capsule, 50-year time capsule opening celebration planning committee. That's a mouthful. But truly, his expertise and knowledge of the history of the harbor and Dana Point was so important to our committee, as was the Historical Society of Barbara and Elizabeth. And without Carlos' participation, it would not have been the same, so we really appreciate that. And it always warms my heart when I hear Carlos and others remember Doris Walker. And she was, I don't have to tell you how special she was. But together, Georgelean and Carlos are truly leaving a legacy of accomplishment and history in this city. And so on behalf of Supervisor Lisa Bartlett, I'd like to present you with this proclamation.
Thank you. Thank you, sir.
And last but not least, from the Chamber of Commerce, the president there, Kim Kelly.
I'd like to present this on behalf of the Dana Point Chamber of Commerce. We recognize and thank Carlos and Georgelean Olvera for their contribution and dedication to the Dana Point Chamber of Commerce and community of Dana Point. I met Georgelean probably before I met you at one of the chamber functions when I started 20 years ago, after this man hired me. And then I met Carlos. And honestly, you're the two nicest people in the city limits of Dana Point. And I was fortunate to work with Carlos for the county's, the Dana Point Harbor 40th anniversary. And we made banners. He helped pick out the photos to make banners to put around the harbor for our 40th celebration. And those banners, some of you saw them at the...
We still use them all the time.
Yeah, and we love them. And they really incite a lot of memories for people. And the city is really blessed to have somebody like you that helps to promote and preserve those memories for our future and for our kids. And they get a kick out of seeing those photos and the bathing suits that came down to theirs, because theirs are this big now. And even we look at them and say, how did they walk around in those crazy things? But it takes really special people to take that task on and to be part of the chamber as long as you have, and to be in the community as long as you have, and really participate and be present. And so thank you very much. He comes a lot.
Thank you, Kim. Now we're going to turn our attention to our audience, and we're going to turn the floor over to our members and guests. I would like to go first with Faith Blossom.
Carlos and Georgelean, you've done so much to educate people to the reason why Dana Point is called Dana Point, after Richard Henry Dana. And Richard Henry Dana VI wrote a letter, and this is an excerpt from it. And he refers to you as Mayor Olvera. As a descendant of R.H. Dana, I wish to thank you for all you have done to assure that his memory remains strong in the town for which he is named. I regret not having made the trip to Dana Point, and I'm sorry not to be able to be there in person to thank you. For all you have done as mayor, as president of the Dana Point Historic Society, as chairman of the Orange County Historical Commission, along with several other key positions over the years, and to put the memory of the town's most famous forefather front and center. Sincerely, Richard Henry Dana VI.
Others like to stand up and make a comment? Okay, we'll move it along. Considering all of the above and what we haven't heard, which is a lot. The Dana Point Historical Society has given its Founders Award for 2017 to Carlos and Georgelean Olvera. Now perhaps our founders would like to make a few comments. Ladies first.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I had a lot of things to say, and all of a sudden they all left me. One of them was, this is a very humbling and exciting opportunity and event. But before this all started, I was sitting there, I kept looking at this list. I don't know if it's really a good idea to get on that list. 6 people aren't with us anymore. So, I guess my position's okay, I'm safe because I'm at the bottom.
We just have a little presentation from the Dana Point Historical Society for Georgelean and for Carlos for the both together. But congratulations to both of you in 2017.
I want to, of course, congratulate the two of you, and we're so appreciative of everything you have done for us. We hope that everyone will linger and talk to George. And there's cake. Yes, thank you, Heidi. But I also want to thank everyone who put this together this evening, and there's a lot of people involved. Marcia LaRusso for organizing the refreshments, those of you who brought some. Willa brought her wonderful deviled eggs. Joel Bishop, who set up our technology for us tonight, such as we have, Keith Johannes. Those of you who set up the chairs, I don't even know everybody that did that because I wasn't here yet. Max for the drinks. Kat's still willing to take the reservations for the June fundraiser. So thank you all for being here, and thank you to each of the members of the Historical Society that helped set this up tonight. Thank you.
As standing here earlier, visiting with you as we walked in, and I was with Dave Pierce. Dave was over here looking at the chart that says sales organization. And so I just walked up to him. I said, "Your dad knew that guy." And then he started relating stories to me about him. And I got thinking, I said, "Wait a minute, Lynn Muir." And Lynn says, "What?" I said, "You know that guy. Is that Jack?" And so the two of them would start sharing stories about the first building, the lots. The one story that really got me was a lot for $400, and it was $10 down and $10 a month. Imagine that in Dana Point right now. And he's telling me he didn't have $400.
To add to Carlos' story, Helen told me, and I referred to it briefly, that proclamation, that Mel and Helen bought a lot from Jack McCart. He looks like a movie star in this photo. They didn't have the money for down payment, so they said, "We can't buy a lot, we don't have a down payment." He said, "My commission is going to be your down payment." And then Helen, what was it, $25 a month? And finally, to pay it off and to start building a house, which the Doheny Volunteer Fire Department built pretty much, except for about 2 of the contractors or subs. She went back to work to get that together so their home could be built. So Jack McCart had some...
And then, where was I going? Oh, it was with Dave and his dad and Buck Henderson. One of the things that stuck in my mind, what was your favorite, Carlos? What is your favorite event for the Historical Society? And it's the Scholarship Fest. that we used to have at the Winnie Park. We moved it around a while. But I can remember very in the early beginning, who's going to cook all this stuff? And I was told, don't worry, the fire department takes care of it. And it's like, I think, what does that mean? And so here comes Dave and a bunch of guys, and I met some of them at Buck's Memorial, Life Celebration, and the fire department here, people are attached to Station 29. Back in the days when it was under CFF, California Fire, were really people like that were helping the Historical Society. So that's why I said earlier that it's all of you that have made the Historical Society successful. Thank you very much for this honor. We really appreciate it.
I'd like to say the same thing. Thank you very much.